Hi, this is Deacon.
And this is Auri.
And this is the Imaginary Box.
What up, bitches?
I would love that if that was your fucking intro. Oh.
Okay. So this is obviously our first podcast, and we are still trying to figure out how to work out some of the kinks. Obviously, Deacon, you're going to have kind of an upper hand on me here since you do live streaming on Twitch when you're playing, what are you playing right now? Smite, right?
Yeah, currently playing Smite and Dead Space for the month of October.
Nice. I caught your first thing of Dead Space. First thing, that's awkward. I took some VTO from work that day so I could basically get some stuff done around the house. And as an added bonus, I actually got to be off work while you were streaming. Mm-hmm. But I was so tired that I ended up passing out. I didn't make it through all of it. That's
a little disheartening. I would hope that my viewers would stay awake.
I know, right?
No, but it makes sense. I mean, I do stream pretty late in the day, and my girlfriend was also watching the stream and fell asleep on the couch. So, at that point, you realize it's not that your stream is boring. It's just that you're fucking streaming at 2 a.m.
Exactly, yeah.
So I forgive you.
Well, I hope you would forgive me, considering I'm your best friend.
Of course.
That's the whole reason we decided to do this podcast, because we're basically just a couple of nerdy friends, and we thought, let's talk about some nerdy shit. So Thor comes out next week. I'm super jazzed.
Yeah, November 3rd.
I'm super excited. Well, I'm excited about Thor. Not too terribly excited about the fact that my birthday is the week after it comes out.
Why not? Why not? You're excited about your birthday?
Well, I mean, I'm going to be 32. And I know you're 32 right now.
Yeah.
So, you're going to be like, don't say anything.
I'm not old yet.
But, yeah, I don't know. Birthdays suck now. But hey, at least I'm going to get some shirtless Chris Hemsworth for this birthday.
Well, yeah, I mean, with any MCU movie, they got to take the shirts off for the ladies.
They do.
Do you think
that's how they
Loki?
Attract us to the theaters?
You think you'll get some shirtless Loki?
I hope so. Oh, God, I hope so. He's, sexy in a really creepy way, but he's still sexy. That voice, oh, my God.
So speaking on that, with your birthday coming up really soon and the new movie coming out, are you excited about what you've seen from the trailer so far?
Oh, my God, yes. First and foremost, that very first teaser trailer we got had, the Grateful Dead in the background, and it got me all hyped up. You keep mentioning the kind of, the vibe that they're going with the kind of colorful 80s stuff. And I don't know if you saw this, but I follow Kevin Smith on Facebook.
Okay.
And he did a trailer reaction. He went live on Facebook and did a trailer reaction. And he was calling out the Grateful Dead and singing along with the song as he was watching the trailer. It was adorable. And something that didn't fully register until I heard him say it was that that was the music that was out when some of these stories were actually in the books, in the comic books.
That's the one thing that I'm excited about. When you look at when the original Guardians of the Galaxies came out and all that stuff, James Gunn has taken the feel of the time and the era that those movies the comic books came out, and put it into the movies. A lot of those stories were written around the 80s and the 70s when there was a lot of the hippie, peace, love, and bright colors kind of thing going on, and so it's this space centric type thing. You saw it a lot in the Doctor Strange movie, and they kind of didn't do it as well as Guardians has with James Gunn. But that's sort of the direction that Marvel's going, where they're capturing the original feel that they got from when they did these original stories.
Yeah, you are really hyped up about that from what I can tell.
Yes.
But I have concerns about it personally. We've talked about that before. I mean, I'm definitely excited to see them kind of go back to their campy roots. They're comic book movies, for crying out loud. So we need that comic book feel in them. I think I'm really nervous about that in Thor Ragnarok specifically, because the previous two Thor movies were more serious. They had obviously a lot of humor threaded into them, which to me was the comic book roots. But what I appreciated about it so much is that pretty much the entire MCU from the beginning took this approach of, we're going to take this outrageous, stupid, ridiculous situation and we're going to talk about it as though it actually happened. How would that happen? How can we be authentic and realistic about it?
Yeah.
when I see Tony Stark in that first Iron Man movie, it breaks my heart at the same time as invigorates me, because watching him go through his origin story felt like, okay, that feels plausible. Like, even though the science is ridiculous, and there's no way any of that shit could be real, and he would probably have killed himself 3 million times over trying to build the first Iron Man suit, plus, you know, the Mark 2, 3, 4, 5, and however many he had by the end of Iron Man 3. Yeah. But, I mean, it makes me forget the ridiculous because I believe in these characters. And with the impression that I had from the first Thor, we have a character who's from a totally different place in the universe, suddenly dropped on Earth, out of context, doesn't know anything about our planet or
has no
Midgard,
idea
as he knows.
On Earth at the beginning of the movie.
Exactly. And we take that we laugh at him because he's so out of place, but he is a very serious character, arrogant, boisterous, cocky, and obviously has to have a lot of that tempered. That's the whole plot of the first Thor movie.
Yeah, you dare point a feeble weapon at the God of Thunder? Yeah. That's just the greatest thing ever.
I know.
But yeah, I can see that. I mean, especially with, like, you brought up the opening of Iron Man, where he's there in a war zone, gets hit by one of his own weapons, almost dies, and then has to come back from that. And yeah, there's a lot of comedy interjected after the fact that he got out of there, because the first half of that movie was super serious up until he got back.
You know, even the beginning of that movie had some funny moments. Like, he's in the Humvee, like, riding away from the demonstration, and he's cracking jokes and being a smartass. But I guess I kind of finish my thought and let you get to what you were going to say. What I'm nervous about, based on what I've seen in the Thor trailer so far, is that so far they've just highlighted all the funny stuff. Like I lost my hammer yesterday, so that's pretty fresh. That doesn't feel like Thor to me. I mean, I'm giggling at it, and I'm kind of excited to see this new side of Thor, but I'm also really nervous because this is the first time we're taking Thor out of the context in which I'm used to him. And we're taking away Jane Foster, who I love, and you know we're talking about that later.
Definitely talking about that.
But I'm nervous about the fact that it feels like we're going to see a whole new side of Thor, and I'm not sure I'm going to like it, but at the same time I want to be open to it. So it's like up in the air, kind of.
Yeah. I know. I very much understand that point with them taking this new direction. I mean, when we saw James Gunn in Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, there was a lot of comedy, and like you said, you know, it was a serious movie with a lot of comedy threaded into it. When you then fast forward to Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I felt like that movie was way more campy, way more of the comic booky type movie than
honestly,
the first
I think
one
the first Guardians was still pretty, like, it was more campy, funny, with some serious notes threaded into it, and that worked for Guardians. I'm worried that formula isn't going to be able to. I don't want everybody to just carbon copy what James Gunn did because Guardians was so successful.
Well, I mean, one perfect example I like to give for how comic booky Guardians 2 is the scene where Rocket is kind of fighting all the Ravengers by himself.
That was kind of ridiculous.
And
awesome.
There's a scene where it's just like the skyline, and you see the Ravengers like popping up in the air and then falling back down, and then popping up in the air and falling back down. And that's something that very much is super comic booky. Like that's just not going to happen in a normal situation. But again, you know, it, like you said, with the science, the movie itself takes you away from that. But for me, that part stuck out a lot. You kind of got that a little bit in the Avengers when Loki has his face off with Hulk, and he's like, you know, and he smashes him around, and he's puny god. And I remember saying to somebody when we left the theaters was like, that is something that you've seen in the comic books that I've been waiting to see live action, and they did it well. They did it where it made sense. Like, you're never going to see somebody grab somebody and manhandle them that way. Like, you can see somebody get manhandled,
like,
but they're not going to get
grab them by
into
the ankles
ground.
And then just throw them around the room.
Yeah. And I feel like this movie's going to take a lot more of that stance with the fact that you have these larger-than-life characters, and they're not just normal metahumans the way that Captain America or Iron Man or those guys are.
Yeah.
Like, these are gods. Like, these are, you know, infinite beings who have those kind of powers to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think I want to see that treated with the same reverence and, like, serious approach that they did with the Earth-centric stories, though. Part of the reason it's so easy for us to do the whole, I don't want to say Christopher Nolan approach, but like breaking DC and breaking continuity here for just a second.
Yeah.
What Christopher Nolan did for the Dark Knight trilogy was take an extraordinary, very, very comic booky storyline and made it feel gritty and realistic and down to earth. Grounded, yeah. And that's ironic considering how high he goes up in a lot of the films. But even Marvel hasn't gone like that gritty and that dark, but you take that Earth-centric stuff because we're in the real world and we want to be able to relate to it and we want to be able to believe into it, so they focus on the more human elements of it. When you take Earth out of the equation and we're talking about an alien planet, I don't want to just like not be able to take them seriously. I want to understand their politics because Earth isn't the only place that's probably divided in different countries with different political views. Earth isn't the only place where people are diverse. I don't want to see them, you know, take me to Asgard and however many other places we're going to go in Ragnarok because it looks like it's not just Asgard.
It looks like it's not just Asgard.
But I don't want to see the movie go to places and then just like make it ridiculous because we're not on Earth anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of taking away the same rules apply type thing where you would hope that they would have a little bit of groundedness so we still feel like we have a connection to that world. You know, like you're saying, like it's diverse. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy kind of touched on the diversity in the, you know, with Ronan and the Kree being these one type of beings who believe this one type of way. And then, you know, everybody else.
You know, actually, one of my favorite moments in the first Guardians movie, John C. Reilly's character, I don't remember his name. We'll probably look that up because that's going to drive me nuts. But at the end of the film, he, you know, pulls Star-Lord aside and says, "You saved my family."
Yeah.
And we then get to see him with, you know, his pink wife and pink daughter. And I love that because that reminds me that these extra errant characters that are in the background and are really just there to either give us information, they're not the star of the film. That was a reminder that we didn't just have big bunches of explosions and really cool CGI graphics. Something real happened if you buy into the premise that all of this is happening. Yeah. There was something significant. He represented literally every life that was saved for me. And that was just like, whoa, blew my mind. Because all of a sudden I was like, that just made me mourn for Groot even more. Yeah. Like, all of a sudden the feels just like jumped right out of my chest and like splashed all over my face.
The way the feels will splash when you see shirtless Chris Hemsworth.
Yes. Yes, please. More shirtless Chris Hemsworth.
So, I mean, speaking on that, you're super... That's the thing that you're worried about is them making it too campy, too comic book. Yeah. What about the trailer made you really excited?
Oh, okay. So, honestly, Cate Blanchett as Hela.
Oh, man, I love me some Cate Blanchett.
I am so excited about that. You're not really as into the Disney crap as I am. No. But I recently rewatched the Cinderella live action film, and Cate Blanchett plays Lady Tremaine, basically the wicked stepmother.
I have not seen that.
She is incredible in anything I've ever seen her, but I keep thinking in my head what I've seen so far in the Ragnarok trailer. I almost didn't recognize her from the last couple of roles that I've seen her in, but I suddenly had this image in my head of the sound of her voice from the Cinderella film. Yeah. I heard just a little bit of that accent with the way that she's like projecting with Hela. She does Wicked so good.
Oh, she does evil really well.
She does it so good.
Really well.
And I'm just really excited to see how she pulls it off. I'm also really excited to see that CGI has made this film possible because so far what we've seen of like the Hulk, he doesn't look like a CGI monster. And Hela's headdress like just looks wicked awesome. So I'm excited to see it. It does. Like I was like, is that a practical? For a second, I wondered if it was a practical effect.
I think they went both with it because I've seen parts where they had the headdress on her where she's wearing it, but it moves around. So obviously, I think they took the same cues that they did with like Spider-Man and Deadpool with the eyes, where they took, it's practical eyes in there with, motion capture mapping. Yeah. And when they do the expressions, they then add those in kind of the way that they might do with the headdress. I know that with Banner, he's taken he's doing the motion capture. So it's not just
So that's legit.
It's legitimately Mark Ruffalo sitting next to Chris Hemsworth in those scenes because he's doing the motion capture for the actual Hulk.
That's crazy awesome.
So they can take his cues, his mannerisms, his body movement, his facial, and actually make.
Have they been
Hulk
doing
look
that
like
with the previous films?
If I believe they did it with Age of Ultron.
Okay, that makes sense. That tracks.
Because if you look at like the Hulk from the Edward Norton movies to Age of Ultron, he looks like Mark Ruffalo. Like he's got. Mark
I did
Ruffalo
notice that,
features.
like in the first Avengers film, like it wasn't the same Hulk that we saw in the Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton. Side note, I was super excited. This is a total random tangent. Sorry to interject it.
All good.
But I was super excited how they brought William Hurt's character from the Incredible Hulk film back for Civil War. And because sometimes I honestly forget that that's part of the MCU continuity. Like sometimes I just forget about that movie altogether.
And it was right before that Disney bought Marvel that those movies were done under, I believe it was Paramount.
Hulk is actually Universal.
Universal, that's right. Universal was the one that did them. But so I lost my shit when I saw him return, William Hurt. I was hoping that eventually we would get Red Hulk because in the comic books, Thunderbolt Ross becomes Red Hulk.
Yeah.
And it would be amazing to see Hulk versus Hulk in the MCU. I don't think it's going to happen, but I mean, I know that one part that I'm crazy excited about is what so many people, including myself, that are Hulk fans have been asking for is Planet Hulk.
Yeah.
And we're getting a taste of that. Now, Hulk's not getting his own movie, but we're getting their taste of that. And in Planet Hulk, he fought Beta Ray Bill, which also has a hammer very similar to Thor's because he was deemed worthy and he got his own hammer and he becomes part of the... he gets a little bit of the Odin Force that like Thor and all them have.
Yeah.
But this time, instead of seeing, them interject Beta Ray Bill, we're getting Thor versus Hulk. So we're getting, Thor versus Hulk plus Planet Hulk. And, in Ragnarok.
That is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I remember in one of the interview thingies that I watched recently, and of course, I feel like woefully underprepared for this conversation now that we're having it. But yeah, I remember in like an interview with, I'm totally going to murder his name, the director of Ragnarok. I want to say it's Takai.
I think it is
Takai. And don't even ask me for the last name because I'm going to murder it. But he was saying something about how even though this is a Thor movie, it's going to feel almost like it's a Hulk movie. And like he's that much involved in it.
Like, and I like that because we got Civil War, which a lot of people, it's a Captain America movie.
Yeah.
A lot of people felt like it was Avengers Part 2.5.
Myself included.
Yeah, I very much felt like that was equally an Iron Man 4 as it could have been, the same thing.
I almost kind of feel like they should like leave out the name of the heroes at this point. Like Iron Man, the first Iron Man makes sense. And Iron Man 2 and 3, honestly, they didn't, come up with a name. They just put a number on it. But like Thor, the Dark World, why not just call that the Dark World? And why not call Civil War just Civil War? You can make it a Captain America movie if you want it, but just call it Civil War.
Yeah, and honestly, with the Civil War one, I agree. With Dark World, I can see why they tagged the Thor in front of it because the people who want to just go see a Thor movie.
Yeah.
Because, we do have a lot of fans who are now just fans of the MCU, not of the comic books necessarily, and hopefully we're bringing a lot of those fans from the movie theaters to our comic book stores.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot of those fans are just their own experiences with the movies, so they hear new Thor movies coming out, and they're like, oh, I'm going to go see a new Thor movie, and... I think you're case in point on that one.
Yeah, like you have way more experience with the comic universe. My experience of the comics is really just doing my research because I'm so excited about the MCU. I'm an MCU fan.
Yes.
And I'll hit up Wikipedia and all the comic blogs and stuff like that to try to understand the differences. But actually reading the comics, I just don't have the time or the money for another like obsession, and I just know that is a rabbit hole I should not go down.
Yeah, because
I can't handle it.
I could tell you right now, like the last time I got into a comic book was right before Iron Man, and I got super deep because they just rebooted the series.
Yeah,
and I got super deep into the Invincible Iron Man, like 30 issues in, hundreds of dollars later, but yeah. So there's a lot of fans that don't read the books and only for the movies. So I can understand why they tag on the first name. Civil War is one of those ones where I don't feel they needed to, because there was so many people who wanted to see the movie. It could have just been Marvel prevents Civil War.
It's weird because on the one hand, I'm actually on the fence the more I think about it in hindsight. When you watch the movie and you get really caught up in the fact that there's so many supporting characters in a Captain America movie that it doesn't feel like a Captain America movie anymore. But the plot is really centric to Captain America in the sense that we got the Bucky Barnes thing going on, and we see Agent 13. We have the kiss finally. That felt like it was almost secondary in a way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we discovered that she was related to Peggy Carter. And it was kind of nice to see that come full circle, considering that was the last Captain America movie, I think, in the trilogy. And it was nice to be able to call back to the first Captain America, because there was such a time warp between the first and the second one. So that was kind of nice.
Yeah, I mean, and that brings up a great point with what I'm worried about with this movie. I mean, with the Captain America movies, you know, they tied up all those questions and things like that. With us bringing in, you know, Planet Hulk and all these new things, is Thor going to get the same closure that we need from the last time we saw him?
Well, you know, honestly, like, now that you say that, that is making me want to talk about Natalie Portman.
Which is a character that's now missing from the series.
I know, but I think I get what you're saying. Like, this is the third Thor movie.
Yes.
And so far, we had, like, 3 Iron Mans. We had 3 Captain Americas. This might be the last Thor movie we get.
From what it's looking like, this is.
That sucks. I don't want this to be the last Thor movie. Obviously, he's going to be in Infinity War, because we saw the preview we weren't supposed to see.
We weren't supposed to see it, but we did.
Yeah.
And I watched it tons and tons of times.
Is it still out there somewhere?
It's harder to find now.
Because I kind of want to watch it again. I want to see Thanos destroying a planet.
Okay, so before we get off on the Thanos thing, but yeah, no, this is his final movie as far as we know. Yeah,
and to that end, is this going to feel like a Thor movie, or is all that extra stuff going to make it like Captain America felt like an Avengers flick?
Yeah. I mean, is it going to be pushed by the wayside? Are we going to get answers for why, you know, where's Odin?
I'm desperate to find out what happened to Odin. Like, did Odin die? Like, did Loki kill him?
If I remember correctly, at the end of Thor Ragnarok, he was still in his Odin sleep, and they were talking about him not waking up for it. And we already lost their mother earlier in the movie being killed by Malekith.
I need to rewatch The Dark World.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's not one of the stronger flicks for me personally in the Thor stance. I mean, I felt like 1 was a lot better than 2 was.
Just tell me to talk about Natalie Portman. Just tell me to talk about Natalie Portman.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about the characters that are missing. So we have Odin missing, and now Natalie Portman, who's not coming back as Jane Foster.
I have a lot to say about that. Okay, so here's the thing about Jane Foster. She's amazing. I love her to pieces. And Natalie Portman, don't even get me started on the actress herself, because I'm so in love with her, it hurts.
Oh, she is an amazing actress.
She totally is. But the thing about what is really frustrating me with Ragnarok, it's already been confirmed on multiple occasions by multiple people that Natalie Portman is not supposed to be in this movie. And yet, the last time we saw Thor, now mind you, there's 3 different types of like cutoffs with Thor.
Yeah.
At the end of the Dark World, we see Thor refusing to sit on and rule Asgard on high.
Yep.
To go to Earth and be with Jane Foster.
Yeah.
At the end of, or in the middle of Age of Ultron, we see him. Yeah. We see him having a pissing contest with Tony Stark about who's got the better girlfriend. Is it Pepper? Is it Jane? Is it Pepper? Is it Jane? It's totally Jane, by the way.
Pepper's better.
No, it's totally Jane. But then, you know, we see him again on Earth with Doctor Strange in the Doctor Strange cameo. And is that before or after he broke up with Jane Foster? Because apparently the breakup with Jane Foster, is it going to be something we see on screen? Can't, because she's not going to be in the movie.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if they're going to touch on it. I mean,
they better.
In Civil War, when Pepper Potts didn't return, they had the thing where, I didn't know she wasn't going to be here, and they kind of touched on that when she decided not to do the movie.
Yeah.
Then fast forward to Spider-Man, and she appears. And they don't really
came out of way left field.
They didn't really touch on it. They kind of took the roadie stance when they changed actors, and you know,
almost, yeah. It's
he walks in, he's like, "Hey, I'm here, deal with it." Yeah. But are they going to be able to do that with Jane Foster? Because I can see how they can kind of, overshadow the fact that he's not with her anymore, or just not even bring her up, seeing that this is not an Earth-centric movie, which we brought up earlier.
Yeah.
This is them being on Asgard and other planets, wherever they are with the Hulk fight.
Yeah.
But they don't have to bring her up if she's not on the world.
That's the thing that's going to really bother me, though, because with the way that it left off, Thor chose Jane Foster over being king of Asgard.
Yeah.
And
that's a pretty big decision.
I know. And he got carried away and caught up with all the stuff that was going on in Avengers. Obviously, he's an Avenger.
Yes.
So when shit goes down in Age of Ultron, we expect to see him do his part. At the end of that, though, I'm still under the impression, it seemed like at the end of Age of Ultron, he's still with Jane because we had that little pissing contest we just talked about. But I'm assuming that at that point, basically went off to go figure out what his vision was about because he sees the stuff with the Infinity Stones and he seems to have this revelation. I honestly, when watching that movie, wasn't sure how that connected entirely to like the vision being created and him just kind of going with it. And we the vision that he had from the Norn was brought up and it was important. And it was like, oh, Thanos, Guardians of the Galaxy, continuity.
Yeah.
And then it was like kind of, all right, we're not going to talk about that. The important thing is Mind Stone.
Yeah.
But I assume that at the end of Avengers, when Thor is going off to do his thing, at the end of Age of Ultron, that is, he's probably leaving Earth. And maybe that puts some strain on his relationship with Jane because he's leaving Earth and she can't go with him because she's got her own research thing happening. What I liked about what they did in Civil War with Tony Stark's character and the Pepper Potts thing.
Yeah.
They addressed it.
Well,
even though Gwyneth Paltrow wasn't in the film, that was Tony's whole motivation in the movie. Like, he was in a dark place because his relationship had just ended, and Pepper is clearly what keeps Tony happy. Like, Pepper is his Prozac. So if they don't talk about the relationship with Jane after the way that they left it off, I'm going to be so pissed because that's part of Thor's character. Like, she's the reason he became Thor again.
Yeah, bringing him back in Thor 1. With Pepper Potts in that whole thing, it's understandable why she needed time away because the last time we saw her and Tony Stark before Age of Ultron, she had just gotten turned to the extremists. Like, she had just almost died. Previously seeing Jane Foster, she had got touched by one of the Infinity Stones and it infected her and it was exploding from her body and she almost died. So, I mean, if they want to take that approach of, like she left him because their relationship was too much strain on her, with him being a superhero and all these crazy things going around him, I could see that. But are they even going to do that?
I'm saying they have to. They better. Because if they don't, that's going to really make this not feel like a good Thor movie to me.
We're having this new character, Valkyrie, come in, who, as far as we know, just named Valkyrie, which is, a warrior in the Asgardian army. Where does she fit? Is she the new love interest? Is she replacing the Jane Foster character?
I think I would really rather them do Sif as his next love interest over some new bitch. Like, seriously.
Bringing up Sif. Where are they in this whole thing? Because this is Asgard. You don't have...
Actually, yeah.
You don't have Sif.
I didn't
you don't
see
have
any of them in the
them
trailer.
Yeah. And as far as I know, she got hurt during the last filming that she was on in Thor. And it was...
The actress or the character?
The actress got hurt.
Oh.
So she was unsure if she was coming back. It was a contract thing. I know that she made an appearance in the TV show, The Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but, that's not continuity with how the MCU works. They kind of separated themselves from the TV show, but we're not seeing Sif. And I would love Sif to be his new, because she was kind of fighting for the role of his love interest.
Yeah, I actually really like the way that they approached Sif's character in the Dark World because it was obvious that she had feelings for him. And I think they did justice to... In the comic books, there's actually a point where Jane and Sif sort of kind of become one.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was really weird. But... I kind of like the way that in the comic books, Odin really was vying for Sif because she's an Asgardian.
She's an
and
Asgardian,
Jane
a
is
strong
not.
one.
She's an Earthling and she's mortal and she's not going to live nearly as long. And for all the reasons that parents want their kids to be with the right person, I totally kind of dug the fact that Thor and Jane had that, like, they're not really supposed to be together and there's tragedy on the horizon because of their differences. Don't get me started on the fact that Jane Foster is now the new Thor, and technically she's not, gonna have that whole human thing getting in the way if they wanted to be together, but whatever. But I like the fact that I want it to be MCU. I like the fact that there was that kind of very subtle hint that Thor at one point might have had some feelings for her.
Yeah.
And that they were totally overpowered by Jane. And that's the way that I felt that the actress played it in Dark World. When Sif is like approaching Thor, it's like, all right, go watch Jane or, go be with Jane. I know that's who you really want. But the way that she played it, she's like, I almost had you. Like, she did an amazing job with that subtlety. And
it was super subtle. It wasn't something that overpowered the story or was another love triangle story arc that needed to happen. But it was there. It's like for the viewers and for us who, you obviously said the comic books, who, while you're still not like super into what's going on with the Thor verse right now, you at least know all that. And a lot of the comic book fans do. But it wasn't like something that was overtly in your face, like, oh, there's a love triangle going on.
Yeah. Well, I especially liked that they brought up the fact that Odin maybe didn't approve of her very much. But the fact that at the end of Dark World, we literally have, now mind you, Thor isn't aware of the fact that he's talking to his brother Loki.
Yeah.
But he literally tells his father, like, I don't want to be your king. Mm-hmm. I want to be with the woman that I love. And for us to pick up in the next time we actually get quality time with Thor and then she's just not there.
Yeah.
If they don't talk about it, Jane Foster is so central to the Thor movies, the previous ones. Mm-hmm. There's just no way they can't mention it. They have to have something in there to give me some closure about Jane. I might be okay with this movie if Thor moves on, if he's got a new love interest, but only if they do justice to this amazing character, because she was almost, in my opinion, like, I know that Thor is the name on the films, but Jane is just as important as he was.
Yeah.
Like, those movies couldn't have existed literally
without her character.
Thor wouldn't have become Thor again if not for Jane's influence and their falling in love. He became Thor again and became worthy of Mjolnir again because of her. And in the second movie, she literally has the darkness inside her.
Yep.
So, I mean, you can't have Thor without Jane.
And now we're getting a movie without Jane.
Or are we?
That's correct. Yeah, no, you did say something about a tweet.
I did, yeah. So, again, gonna murder his name. Takai, the director, Takai Waititi. I want to say that's his name.
I believe you're right. You can't quote me on that.
I feel like I'm saying George Takai. I know I'm murdering. Please forgive me if you're actually listening to this. I don't know why you would be, but please don't take personal offense. I'm just horrible. Anyhow, so yeah, actually because of course I'm obsessed with Jane.
Yeah.
I did some digging to see if there was any hope whatsoever that we had any details about her character. Apparently he tweeted, and I'm not prepared with like the information right in front of me, but he tweeted like a picture of Natalie Portman from like an old movie when she was really young.
Yeah.
And then another one from when she was still relatively young. And in both of them, for some reason, she's carrying like a potted plant.
Huh.
But the only thing he put in there was just like hashtag Ragnarok.
Okay.
And that made me think, are you trying to tell me something?
Are you trying to tell me there's
going
to be a cameo?
Are you trying to tell me something that maybe she's going to do a cameo? Apparently, Natalie Portman, the reason why we know that she's not going to be in it is she has gone on record saying, as far as I know, I'm done.
Yeah.
But then later also said that she would be open to returning to the MCU if there was an opportunity for it. Mm-hmm. So that maybe kind of has me a little bit hopeful that possibly we're either going to get a cameo or they're going to leave it off in a place that lets us know that Jane's going to come back. She's just not here for this one because she wasn't needed in this one. And we didn't need to pay an amazing, incredible Oscar-winning actress to be in a film that she's really not going to be in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the idea that there's a possibility for a cameo would be amazing because we don't know exactly what's going to happen in this movie yet.
Yeah.
You know, what we do know.
We know that Anthony Hopkins isn't going to be in it.
Yeah, we do know that Odin is not in the movie.
That makes me sad.
Yeah. I was a bit upset when I found out that he said he was done. Because I can't see anybody else just coming in and filling in his role. You know, it's not a secondary character like a Don Cheadle coming in and filling on, Rhodey. And it's not the fact that like Don Cheadle came in on the second movie. So it was only one movie that with that one actor. We've had 2 movies with Odin, and at the end of the last time that we saw Odin, Loki was pretending to be him talking to Thor, and Thor again leading into Jane Foster.
Honestly, I don't think anybody else could play Odin. But that has me distantly hopeful that we might possibly see Odin's son.
The Odin son.
Because, if Odin is gone, like just permanently gone, and have we even talked about this yet?
No.
Horse Thammer? Oh man, getting tongue-tied. Have we even talked about the fact that in the trailer we see Hela break Thor's hammer?
Yeah.
And literally, one of the campy little jokes and weird flourishes of Thor is, so I just lost my hammer yesterday, so that's still pretty fresh.
Yeah.
Without his hammer, like, who is he? What is his powers? Is the hammer his power set? Mm-hmm. Are the powers within him now that he proved that he was worthy? Did Mjolnir give him the powers back and he still has those? He just doesn't have the hammer? Yeah. But does this leave an opening to like introduce the Odin son version of Thor's character and maybe possibly lead into the fact that he's not going to be the Thor anymore? Jane Foster, wink,
Jane
wink.
Foster as a Thor. Yeah.
That would be a perfect introduction into the MCU. Don't you agree?
That brings up a great point because so for anybody who's listening who doesn't know about the Odin Force or the Odin son, in the comic books, when Odin, finally passes the Force onto his son, he now becomes the new one. He like becomes a new ruler of Asgard, and he's got the new Odin, so he has all the powers that Odin had, which makes him just extremely powerful. Like Thor's powerful right now. Like it makes him beyond powerful, and so if his hammer's broken.
I can make a dirty comment about powerful. I'm not gonna.
But if from my recollection, in the first movie when he took away Thor's power, he didn't just strip him of Mjolnir. Like he took Mjolnir first and then stripped him of his power. Like he ripped off the chest pieces.
He ripped the power first
and then took Mjolnir.
Well, no, I think you're right. He did technically take Mjolnir first, but he said, I strip you of your powers, sent Thor through the Bifrost, and then he whispers to Mjolnir, should he be worthy, whosoever holds this hammer will carry the power of Thor.
And so I'm wondering if Thor's powers are just innate to him, and Mjolnir, is the thing that boosts it because he had to strip him of his power. And so in order for him to be worthy of his power again, he then had to be able to be worthy of picking up Mjolnir. So
my interpretation of that was that he took Thor's power out of Thor and put it into the hammer. And if Thor proved to be worthy, he would have his powers as long as he had Mjolnir in his hand, which to me left open the fact that somebody else could be Thor if they were worthy of the hammer. Does that mean that when he's not holding the hammer, he's not Thor? Because he does the little spinny fly thing with the hammer. Yeah, and he throws his hammer
quite a bit, so he's throwing his power away if that's the case.
Yeah. And then in the new Ragnarok trailer, like the most recent one, probably in multiples, I'm sure.
I believe the first one and the new one.
But one of my favorite moments from it is when, Hela's like, I'm the goddess of death. Who were you the god of again?
Yeah.
And then we see Thor doing this really awesome, like, fly type leap down onto the Bifrost in front of the, Asgard in the background. And he's just like covered in lightning. And I didn't see the hammer.
Yeah.
So is that maybe like, does that prove that Thor still has his power without the hammer? Or is that possibly a preview of Odin Force, Odin's son?
Well, here's the thing that brings up with the hammer. Mm-hmm. So anybody who can lift a hammer should have the power of Thor if the case was the hammer gives you the power. But in Age of Ultron, there was somebody who lifted the hammer, and he didn't become Thor. He picked up the hammer, and the Vision lifted up that hammer.
He only held the hammer for like 2 minutes. Maybe he had the power of Thor for those 2 minutes.
Well, how long
not
do you
even
have to
2
hold
minutes.
It?
It was like 2 seconds.
But he did lift up Thor's hammer.
Elevator's not worthy.
Does that make the elevator worthy? But the Vision did lift up Thor's hammer, and in the beginning of the movie, Captain America nudged it.
Yeah.
So they don't get endowed with the power of Thor because Thor already has his power in him. So I'm wondering if he just believes that the hammer, holds his power, but it actually doesn't. So he hasn't unlocked
his power until he proved worthy, and the hammer returned his power to him, and it went back to being a tool at that point.
Yeah, and the only person who can wield that tool would be somebody who has the power of Thor.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so I mean, like it's almost the whole Spider-Man kind of like, I'm nothing without my suit. You're still
I love that moment.
You're still who you are without
I totally predicted that.
Yeah,
I totally. I mean,
but if you think about it, it's that cliche. You lose this thing to prove that you are who you are without it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that part I'm excited about. Thor showing that he's still Thor, even without the power of Mjolnir.
I'm excited about that, too. At the same time, I know I'm probably getting excited about the theories about where it might be headed.
Yeah.
And normally, I'm the person that's like, shut that shit down. Like, come on. Don't dream too big, because you're just going to be disappointed. And I know that if I really allow myself to think that, I'm going to be disappointed, because that's probably not where it's going. But at the same time, there's a part of me that, honestly, it's my obsession with Jane. I just want there to be an opening for Jane to be important, because that was the other thing. Apparently, Natalie Portman was disappointed that her character wasn't as important and that she was like damsel in distress. That's not really how I interpreted her character. She honestly is the reason that I'm so in love with Thor. It's through her eyes, the way that I see Thor, and it's because I'm in love with Natalie Portman as Jane Foster that I really appreciate the movies as much as I did. I know that you kind of felt that they were the two weaker points in the MCU, but for me, that was a bright spot because of her.
I mean, yeah, and for me personally, I do feel that there are two weaker movies in the MCU, with the exception of the one movie that we would just always pretend it didn't happen, which is Iron Man 3.
I don't pretend it didn't happen.
I do.
Why?
Because they ruined the Mandarin. The thing is, though, is Iron Man 3, okay?
They also ruined Zemo. In Civil War.
They didn't. Here's the thing. I'm a huge villain fan.
Yeah.
Anybody who knows me, I mean,
Deacon's all about that rogue gallery.
I cosplay as Taskmaster because #hipster Taskmaster. He knew your moves before you did. But I love my villains because I believe that a good villain will make a good character better. I mean, that's the reason a lot of people love Batman, because of his rogue gallery. That's the reason a lot of people love Spider-Man. I personally didn't feel like they ruined Zemo. Granted, I was sitting there the entire movie going, put on the purple mask, put on the purple mask, put on the purple mask. Like, I was hoping he would don the purple mask, and maybe have a fight scene, because they did mention that he was former military, so he maybe could have held his own against Captain America. You never know. But they let him be human because he didn't have the super serum that the comic book Zemo does.
Yeah. But I kind of feel like they just gave him a comic book name to add continuity, because there wasn't any from, Civil War. That's the one, I got Watchmen when that came out, because when the movie came out, I wanted to have read the graphic novel. I normally try to avoid comic books because I don't want to get addicted. We already talked about that. Yeah. But you lent me your the graphic novel version of Civil War, the whole thing. The whole thing, yeah. And the film and the comic event,
100%, two different things.
Very different things. Yeah. You have to appreciate them as totally separate things as well. I mean, the spirit is still there, but Zemo didn't have anything to do with Civil War.
No, he didn't. And I mean, you had a few villains in there like Venom and Green Goblin and things like that, but obviously, he had just brought Spider-Man into it. You don't want to kind of bring his rogue gallery with him into the movie. And there was a lot of characters that the Marvel MCU doesn't own right now because of contractual obligations with Fox and all them. But the movie from the comic book is a completely different thing, seeing that you have hundreds of characters fighting each other over. And the only real thing that they really kept from it was you have hero versus hero, and you have registration versus anti-registration.
Yeah.
And that's basically all they kept from the Civil War thing.
There was kind of an irony to the fact that in Civil War, the comic event, you have Peter Parker unmasking himself as part of Teen Iron Man.
Yeah.
But in the movie, we just met him.
Yeah.
Like, well, having him unmask himself would mean nothing.
Yeah, and so, I mean, in the comic books, you have 40-plus years of Spider-Man continuity where he's never unmasked himself to the public. And, you know, he's finally doing that. So that was a big thing where everybody was like, oh, my God, like Spider-Man took off his mask at a press conference. And then, you know, Mary Jane and Aunt May got attacked, and Spider-Man almost got killed by a few villains. From what I remember correctly, on the original writing, before they actually got the rights to Spider-Man to be in the movie, Black Panther was supposed to play that position. But again, like you're saying, I don't know how that would have worked with him being a new character to the MCU and then having him unmask himself.
I'm just saying, I can appreciate the irony that, like, I remember being excited when I heard that Spider-Man was going to be in Civil War because he was such an important part of the comic event. But immediately I was like, but we don't know Spider-Man yet. So he's not going to be able to play that same heady role.
Yeah.
And that's an iconic moment. That was the whole reason I wanted to read Civil War, because I was a huge Spider-Man, fan. And you're a huge Spider-Man fan. Credit where it's due. This man is way more into Spider-Man than I am.
My first ever comic was Spider-Man 300, drawn by Todd McFarlane. First appearance of Venom.
Didn't you get that signed?
I have it signed. I have 2 copies. I have my original copy, which is tattered and torn because I got it when I was 4. And then I have my brand new copy, which is signed by Todd McFarlane and Stan Lee. It is my prized possession. It was signed and never removed from its packaging and will never be again. You know, unfortunately, the other guys I would want to sign are either not around or don't do conventions. But
yeah,
going back to, you said they ruined Zemo. We were talking about the Mandarin, which is the reason that I didn't like the Iron Man 3 movie. You know, and that's why I feel that that's the weaker of it. I mean, the Extremist story that they did could have stood alone on its own, because it's a very good comic book series. Yeah. And it could have stood alone on its own without adding the Mandarin. So that's the reason, it goes, the worst movie in the MCU is Iron Man 3, and then I would probably say the Thor movies, for me personally.
Yeah. I will have to say, though, on the plus side for Iron Man 3, to its credit, what I love about Iron Man 3 is that it was a third installment of a single hero series. Yeah. And it didn't have to involve all those other characters, and it really brought closure to Tony's arc. Yeah. I love how it set him up for the rest of the MCU, because every time we've seen him since then, and keep in mind, Iron Man 3 took place pretty much immediately after the Avengers movie.
Yeah, it was the only
it picks up movie with his baggage from being gone through the wormhole and almost dying, or dying for a minute. Yeah. And going
Hulk
through his panic attack.
Alive.
Yeah. That was incredible. Side note, I'm really still sad that Joss Whedon isn't involved in, in any of the Avengers stuff anymore. But
with you being sad about Joss Whedon, I'm okay with the Russo brothers.
I'm getting to be okay with them.
I mean, Winter Soldier was just a phenomenally done movie, and it's one of my favorites.
It really was.
It's in my top 5 of the movies.
As much of a crush as I have on Thor, I also have probably an equally sized crush right now on Bucky Barnes, because Sebastian Stan is so delicious. But Natalie Portman and Jane Foster still trump them all. I'm never going to shut up about Natalie Portman. No, to its credit, Iron Man 3, what I really loved about it, it gave me that closure to Tony's arc. And I think it set him up really successfully to be that cameo in the subsequent movies that he appeared in afterwards. Yeah. It was so focused on his PTSD, and wrapping up this, this panic of why he was creating all these things. But I think it actually did a really great job of also building him up for Avengers 2 Age of Ultron.
Yeah, because, at that point, he's super worried about everything. He's got the Ultron bots, and he wants to make peace across the world because of what he saw through that wormhole.
Yeah, but also he saw what regular humans are capable of doing. Yeah. He wanted to create that shield around the planet, you know, in order to be able to focus on the stuff at home, because Extremis was some pretty terrifying shit, especially considering what happened to Pepper.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But to its credit, what I loved about Iron Man 3, and I know I've said that like 5 times now, but I'm trying to get my point out. To its credit, I loved how we got to see that profile of Tony Stark. Mm-hmm. I feel like Captain America Civil War, being the third of the Captain America trilogy, if that is a trilogy, and I'm assuming that it is.
It is.
It felt like it was so focused on all the other characters, and it didn't give me any closure. It left off in this really weird cliffhanger point because we have half of our people in jail, and the only closure we really got wasn't really closure at all. The Russo brothers have made it pretty clear, or Kevin Feige has.
Yeah.
Is it Feige or Feige?
Feige.
I usually see his name in print. I don't I don't hear it or say it. But they've made it pretty clear that the whole purpose of Civil War was to break them to set up Infinity War.
Yeah, because you have to bring them back together.
Exactly.
You have to give them a reason to fight the same way that you did when Loki killed Agent Coulson.
So the closest thing to a high note that we could leave off on with Civil War was that little phone call recorded message thing where Captain America's like, so Tony, I'm here for you if you need me. And there's almost like a little smirk on Tony's face. Apparently, though, they're still supposed to be, quote, broken.
Yeah.
I think that could go either way. If you choose to interpret, that's a very high note to leave off on. Like, even though shit's really fucked up right now, they're going to make it through. Like, that's how I'd like to believe it. But I already know because the creators are telling me they're in a bad place for Infinity War. And so that didn't give me a whole lot of closure. I'm really nervous that Ragnarok is going to do that same thing to me. If this is Thor's last movie... One, obviously, I'm going to harp on Jane Foster one last time.
Yeah.
I'm not okay with the fact that she's not part of that closure if they're going to give me Thor closure. And given that we know Thor is coming back for other stuff, how are we going to do closure? Because this feels more like a setup movie than a closure movie.
Yeah, and it does feel like a big setup for Infinity Wars. But I mean, I feel the same way that you do about Jane Foster not returning, with Odin. Because again, where's the closure on that? Where did we leave off?
How are they going to explain that? And they better explain it. I mean, you can't not explain where Odin went.
Yeah, especially with what's looking like is Hela is just coming into Asgard and just dropping a fucking bomb.
Yeah,
and like breaking Thor's hammer, and Asgard is completely in disarray. Heimdall's not there. We
did see tiny little itty bitty preview of Heimdall with dreads.
With still those intense glowing eyes.
Fucking gorgeous eyes. But no, actually, I kind of feel like we've been dodging this. It's the elephant in the room. We need to talk about Loki.
Yeah.
So at the end of The Dark World, Loki is posturing himself as Odin.
Yes.
And Thor doesn't know about that. He presumes that Loki is dead, that Loki sacrificed himself and was a hero and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and died at the hands of Malekith.
Yeah. Now, fast forward, Age of Ultron, we have a vision with Thor going off on Infinity Stone stuff, and we have totally different tangent. Then fast forward to another movie at the end of Doctor Strange, we have a post-credit scene where Doctor Strange sits down with Thor and a magical refilling beer mug. And they're talking about Loki, and there's zero context as to, one, when does this take place? At what point in the timeline does that occur? And more importantly, why doesn't Thor seem to be surprised that we're talking about Loki as though he's not dead? Because the last time we saw Thor in any context with Loki, he was under the impression that his brother died a hero.
Yeah, that his brother died a hero, and that Odin was still alive, and we're not getting any of that. That's a big thing I'm worried about. Like, how does Doctor Strange fit into the movie?
Yeah.
Because you're adding all these extra characters. Where do we get that closure?
Yeah. I'm hoping that Doctor Strange is going to be more just like a brief cameo towards the beginning or possibly the end. And that however he fits into it, it's going to explain that post-credit sequence.
I would see him more towards the beginning, because towards the end doesn't make sense completely, because where would that cameo fit?
Well, because he still had the long hair when he had that conversation with Doctor Strange, so I would think it has to be at the beginning.
Yeah. So I would think it'd be at the beginning. And the way I'm seeing Doctor Strange is if he was having difficulty contacting Heimdall and all of them, let's say Hela is already destroyed
Doctor
Asgard,
Strange could be his way off Earth.
and Doctor Strange could be his way back into Midgard.
That
or
makes
Midgard's
sense.
Earth, back into Asgard.
Back to Asgard,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, actually, that brings up another interesting point. We have a post-credits sequence where Captain America, Steve Rogers, is throwing some punches at a punching bag after he's been resurrected in the modern world.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Fury approaches him, and I just hit my mic. Nick Fury approaches him and is like, we've got work for you to do. And, you know, we see Captain America being like, I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah.
That was like a tease for the upcoming Avengers. Then it turned into a scene in the next
actual
movie.
movie.
So I'm wondering if maybe that post-credit sequence from Doctor Strange might actually be a scene from Ragnarok.
It would be really good if it was a scene from Ragnarok, especially seeing if that's how you start the movie with him talking to Strange. And maybe they give us a little more context of, you know, why he's not surprised that Loki's alive. You know?
Yeah.
I would be happy if they wrapped that up. If they gave us a reason why he's not surprised.
Yeah. If I could go on a theory tangent for just a second here.
By all means.
I'm starting to feel like I'm formulating a picture in my mind of how Ragnarok might open and stretch into the story. I'm thinking that conversation... I'm still not sure how Loki fits into it and whether or not Thor was already aware of it. But if we start off relatively early with Thor being like, I need to get off this planet, maybe he's already broken up with Jane because he's obsessing over Avengers-related stuff.
Yeah.
And we're going to have some like, man, this sucks. My girlfriend broke up with me and my whole reason for being on Earth, and there's all these other things that I need to do.
Yeah.
And so then we see... him talking to Doctor Strange and possibly getting away off Earth. When he reaches Asgard, we find out what Loki's been up to. Hela shows up. All Hela breaks loose.
Yeah.
Hammer gets broken. And then he goes off on this, quote, journey of self-discovery because he no longer has his hammer. His girlfriend's left him. And he's in a really low place.
Yeah. And then he gets captured by...
And then he gets captured, and finally one good thing happens to him. He meets an old friend from work.
Yeah,
I know him. I love that part of the
that would be a great thing. And what's weird is I'm really wondering when they bring Loki in, because on that scene that we're watching when he first sees the Incredible Hulk bust out of the doors, Loki's sitting next to the Grandmaster.
Yes.
Like, already just sitting there. Like, and later in the trailer...
if Loki had something to do with his capture.
It could be possible. I mean...
That is so a Loki thing.
Later in the trailer, we see Loki imprisoned.
Yeah.
So, like, what does Loki do to screw up?
We've seen in the trailer that it's Valkyrie who somehow grabs Thor.
Yeah.
But it still feels like Loki could be the architect of that. That is such a Loki thing to do.
It very much is. And, okay, so with the Valkyrie thing, I feel like she's taking place of a character from... not only maybe possibly a love interest for Thor, from Jane Foster, but in Planet Hulk, when Hulk is captured on that series, his love interest, which ends up becoming his wife on the Planet Hulk, after he defeats the Red King, which is now being played by the Grandmaster in this series, Planet Hulk, that's a character that captures him and actually brings people to the Red King for them to battle in the Colosseum. So it's kind of a couple of stories that are meshing together there, Planet Hulk and then, the contest of champions.
I wonder how that's going to be stitched together and whether we're going to like it. Now, I don't have as much attachment to the comics as a lot of the fans out there.
Yeah.
Because I'm more of an MCU person myself. It's interesting, like, this is totally separate tangent, but related. I love the Harry Potter books. Yeah. And when the films came out, my actual first impression of Harry Potter was the first movie.
Okay.
And then I started reading the books.
I have yet to read the books.
When I watched Chamber of Secrets, I remember thinking, oh, that's okay. But Prisoner of Azkaban, that was when I had this huge dissonance where I had to appreciate the movies totally separate from the books, because that's where it really diverged for me. It's hard for me sometimes to relate to the comic fans because... as an MCU only, I obviously I know things from the comics. Yeah. Because of that's who I am. I dive in and I research and I'm like a peripheral comics fan. Yeah. But I'm not familiar enough with a lot of the stories that are going to be in Ragnarok. Like, I'm not even familiar with the Ragnarok story itself that the movie is titled after.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how comic fans are going to react, because it feels like they are mushing a lot of stuff together. Yeah. Whereas Civil War with Captain America's trilogy arc, that was a big event that had other characters because that was that storyline.
Yeah.
And no matter how much they deviated from the event, it was still Civil War. And is Ragnarok still going to be Ragnarok with all these other elements brought into it?
Yeah, because I mean, like you were saying, it's basically Planet Hulk, and if you, since you have the Grand Master in there, which is the brother of the Collector in the comic books.
Not sure about that being in the MCU.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's going to be in the MCU. It would be great if they had a Benicio del Toro, cameo. But his shit got destroyed in the first Guardians movie, and we haven't seen him since.
Yeah.
We still know that he holds an Infinity Stone, so he's gonna have to be back in the movies at some point.
Yeah.
Would this be where they bring him back in? But yeah, you got the Planet Hulk storyline plus the Contest of Champions, which is where the Grandmaster kidnaps champions of Earth, and makes them fight against each other. This is gonna be to a lesser extent because it's just Thor and just Hulk, as far as we know. They haven't added any other big major Marvel characters. We're not going to get Captain Marvel and all that stuff until later.
Honestly, I don't think they could hold that back. Like, Spider-Man is one of those treasureful delights that they should not have shown in the trailers. They should have surprised us with that in Civil War, but they put it in the trailer.
I agree with that. Like, here's the thing with the Marvel trailers. The closer you get to the movie, the more shit that they give you. And I wish that they didn't. When we were watching Age of Ultron, everybody knew that Vision was going to be in the movie, that we were finally getting the Vision. We didn't know how it was going to happen, and they hadn't shown him. But then, like, less than a month before the movie comes out, you get the thing, and then right before the Avengers Age of Ultron moniker pops up on the screen, it shows Vision's, his eye and the Infinity Stone in his forehead.
Yeah.
And it was dark. It was hard to make out. It was real fast, but we were like, shit. And then,
damn it.
And then Entertainment Weekly, like right after that, releases covers, and the Vision is on one of their covers, and we get our first full look at the Vision, just the same way we did with Spider-Man. We got him about a month, and then Entertainment Weekly dropped a cover story with him on the cover, and they revealed his suit. Everybody was looking forward to seeing what Spider-Man was going to look like in the MCU.
Yeah.
So Marvel. While
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going to say that on the one hand, it kind of sucks that we're not going to be surprised. I'm the one that originally brought that point up. On the other hand, going off on another little bit of a tangent, you just reminded me, like, I remember we talked about Age of Ultron before it came out because I was curious. I had read the Civil War stuff, and I was like, I don't know anything about Age of Ultron. And you were really excited about that when that was going to be the next Avengers movie. And you were telling me, because we all at the same time found out that Ant-Man was gonna happen. And we were trying to figure out, like in Age of Ultron, technically Hank Pym had a bigger role, obviously a really big role in that.
Huge role. He created Ultron.
Whereas they decided to displace that and put that on Tony Stark in this one, and you were okay with it. And sometimes I wonder if getting those sneak previews and getting those, getting the information that maybe should have been a surprise actually helps us. I mentioned Harry Potter a little bit ago. And here's the thing. I hate the movies when I compare them to the books. I really do. But if I allow myself to appreciate them separately, the movies are super solid. Daniel Radcliffe is an amazing actor. Emma Watson, Rupert Grint. They're a great trio. They're not exactly the trio that I imagine when I read the books. When book 4, Goblet of Fire, was coming out as a movie, I remember thinking, this book is twice the size as the previous books. And yet it's going to get the same runtime in the film. And I didn't know how they were going to do that. And there was this, there's a website, I'm sure it probably still exists, called mugglenet.com. It's a big Harry Potter fan site. Emerson, the guy that ran it, actually got to see a sneak preview of the 4th movie before it came out. And he did this huge spoilerific review, just telling you how the movie went. And I remember thinking, I'm totally spoiling the movie for myself. But I got all the hatred out before I actually saw the movie. Like all the things that were gonna make me angry if I saw the movie the first time without knowing any of those things, all the things that were gonna piss me off, I got it out of my system. And so by the time I actually saw the movie, even though I wasn't surprised, I liked the movie.
Yeah.
I was able to appreciate it. So maybe anything that we are getting spoiled, perhaps that helps us get the like, I'm going to be so pissed out of our system. We can lower our expectations and then appreciate it from there.
When it comes to that for the MCU, when I saw the Vision on the cover of Entertainment Weekly, I was like, what? No joke. That was my reaction. And it's because of the fact that they added all these purples and things in. And I'm used to the Vision and his iconic
red and green.
His red face.
Yeah.
His green and yellow suit.
Yeah.
Just, I mean,
very stark.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and
very comic booky.
I can understand why portraying that suit into the cinema will not translate well. That's going to be an ugly looking fucking suit. You know what I mean?
Scarlet
but to be
Witch.
Honest, and they wanted him, just like the Scarlet Witch's outfit. And Quicksilver's, to be honest, you know what I mean? He's wearing a tracksuit at that point, you know, not like a tracksuit, like, you know, an Adidas tracksuit, but like a speed skater suit in the comic books. I mean,
I like that. I remember we also mentioned the Dark Knight trilogy earlier and how it's this nittier, grittier, you know, kind of approach to things.
Yeah.
I feel like there's something a little bit lost there in the more realistic approach to it. Like, don't get me wrong, Heath Ledger's Joker is amazing, and there's no topping that.
No, at all whatsoever. Ever.
But at the same time, that's Heath Ledger's Joker. Yeah. It's not any other version of the Joker that I've ever seen before. That's what makes it so special. Mm-hmm. And yet there was something a little bit lost as far as the Joker, because you want to get me off on comic books. DC is my jam.
DC is where it is. Yeah,
you're a little bit more Marvel. I'm a little bit
very
more DC.
Much so.
That's totally
Image
fine.
and Marvel is my game.
Yeah. That said, I like that with Marvel movies, they're not going totally over the top spandex costumes, but they are very much more true to the comic books in my mind than, you know, some of the other approaches.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people shit on the fact that, you know, Hawkeye doesn't wear his purple, you know what I mean? But the comic book Hawkeye, a bit cheesy. That mask, nobody would walk outside wearing that fucking mask. But in the same token, you have Captain America, who in Avengers, the original Avengers, they made mention of, well, isn't that a bit, you know, like
Star-Spangled
over the top?
Maybe we need that.
Maybe we need that. And honestly, I think it fit for that movie.
Yeah.
And I think it fit for, you know, Iron Man looking iconic Iron Man and them slowly changing him up.
But I want to say something about Hawkeye really quick, just because you mentioned him. He may not be wearing his crazy headdress and his bright purple crap, but the truth is, he's still a superhero that doesn't have superpowers except for the fact that he's got a freaking bow and arrow.
I got a freaking bow out here.
The fact that I love the way they did Hawkeye in Avengers. Yeah. I'm not going to complain about the costume, because the more important element of that to me was the fact that my favorite part of the first Avengers film starts with they're all talking and the Cap is barking orders.
Yep.
And then they break and they have this amazing synchronized, just like they're talking to each other. Mm-hmm. That fight sequence, that action sequence is just so incredibly and amazingly choreographed. There comes a point where Barton actually runs out of arrows.
Yeah.
And they didn't just magically give him more arrows, but up to that point, the way that he was participating, his role in that whole action sequence, the way his eyes, the way that he was calling shit out, like that was just so incredible. And that's the role that they needed Hawkeye to play. That's the whole reason why he was in the movie.
And I mean, I will give Marvel 100% credit that I've always said, no matter what they change, the characters that you watch on the films feel like the characters you read in the books.
Absolutely.
You feel like you have a connection to these characters. You feel like you've known them for years. And while they've changed, you know, Ant-Man being a perfect example, the Yellow Jacket was never a villain in the comic books the way he is in the movie.
Yeah.
He was another iteration of Hank Pym who has mental issues out the wazoo, which is how he created Ultron in the first place. But he has a thing where he loses his mind after he creates Ultron, and he starts dawning on this Yellow Jacket persona. And the heroes have to fight him because he's crazy. Like they believe he's killing villains instead of saving, stopping them.
Yeah.
And so them taking and making it a Scott Lang movie, which Scott Lang was briefly, the Ant-Man, and then making it a Scott Lang movie and then taking Yellow Jacket as a character and making him into a villain, it worked for me, especially seeing that I am a huge Ant-Man fan. It worked for me. And a lot of the things that they change in the movies work for me. One thing that we know for a fact that they're changing in this movie, or not for a fact, but we have on good confirmation, is Hela is now Death.
Yeah, they're posturing her as Lady Death.
Yeah, not just that she's the guardian of Hell in Asgard. No, she is actually the Marvel's version of Death, which is its own separate character in the comic books. Yeah, and that just that brings in back to what we're talking about with her being a big part of the Infinity War.
Yeah, my really good friend Rage. Mm-hmm. That's his handle.
Yeah,
he's a really big Deadpool fan, and he and I keep having these conversations about every time Infinity War, every time MCU comes up, he's like super jazzed about Justice League and DC stuff, and so he's my friend that I jive with on that because I know you're not excited about it. But every time we do talk about MCU, he cannot shut up about it. He's like, I just don't understand how they're going to do Infinity War and Thanos and Death without Deadpool there because, the whole Fox and all. I'm just like, I don't think it's that you can't imagine it. It's that you don't want to.
You don't want to. Yeah,
you don't want to not have that, love interest triangle thing going on there. But one of the things, and again, I know I'm not as informed as you and Rage would be.
Yeah.
He's probably more like TV series rather than into the comics. Mm-hmm. That's where he gets most of his continuity and his, information from, so to speak. And that's where his fandom is.
Yeah.
But what he's freaking out about, he's like, Thanos is totally a Deadpool villain. And I'm like, he's not just a Deadpool villain.
He wasn't originally just a Deadpool villain. I mean, granted now they use him a lot in the Deadpool because there was a series recently called Deadpool versus Thanos, where they were basically fighting over the affection of Death because Deadpool cannot die, so Death is obsessed with him.
Yeah, that's the thing that I wanted to actually ask you about, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I had a conversation with Rage recently and said this, and I'm fact-checking myself live on podcast with Deacon for your viewing pleasure or listening pleasure, because you're not actually watching us. I had mentioned that from what I understood of this triangle, Thanos is in love with Death.
Yep.
And he wants to recreate the world, the universe, existence.
To her liking.
In order to impress her and to woo her.
Yep.
Death is not impressed by anything Thanos is doing that she couldn't do herself. Like, she's the mistress of Death. She's the masteress of Death.
Yeah.
And the reason why she's in love with and so enamored by Deadpool is because he can't die.
Yes.
And Rage was like, no, he can't die because she's in love with him. And I was like, no, his mutation, he can't die.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why she's into him.
I mean, and it depends on the writer, to be honest with you, who goes back and forth.
That's the thing with comics.
Yeah, that's the thing with comics.
Continuity is a little difficult when you start to multiverse.
Yeah, and you got to really depend on what version you're reading. But yeah, no, he can't die, and it's not because Death is in love with him. It's because Deadpool can't die, and that's why Death is obsessed with him, because she wants him. She wants to take him. Thanos, and a great thing that you brought up was, him courting Death in the Avengers post-credit when they finally show Thanos and he's talking to his person, and he tells him that challenging the humans is to court Death, and he turns around and he smiles. A lot of the non-fans didn't get that.
Yeah.
I lost my shit in that movie theater. It is good that was a post-credit, because I was like, yeah! Like, I was yelling like a crazy person.
Yeah.
I mean, and other people who were sitting next to me were like, what does that mean? Yeah. And I was like, oh, dude. But like Hela coming in as Death. And I'm a huge Hela fan because her arcs in throughout the series, when she does show up, she fucks shit up. Like, she doesn't just show up for no reason. I mean, she's the one who punishes everybody for eternity when they die. You know what I mean? Her coming up as Death I'm excited about. I'm excited that you don't have to introduce a new character. You don't have to go into Infinity War and introduce Death. We're getting Death in Ragnarok.
Yeah.
You know, and so here's the thing.
We kind of need a death figure in order for Infinity War to be there. So I'm excited that this is the approach that they've got. Obviously I'm not going to be as well informed to my point earlier.
Yeah.
I wonder how the comic fans are going to react to the way that we're meshing things together. But I think that for any of you guys that are worried about the not having the love interest, like with Deadpool and the triangle there, I feel like
it's a moot point.
It is, because we could still have the dynamic between Hela/Death and Thanos is still going to be the same. The fact that he wants her and she doesn't really give a shit about him.
Yeah, because she wants to be powerful herself.
And Deadpool wasn't really vital to Infinity War, was he?
No. As far as I remember, no, he wasn't. The characters that they have coming in with Hulk, Thor, the Avengers, Nebula, the Guardians of the Galaxy, those were the ones that were...
Another thing, though, to keep in mind is that this version of Death isn't the same Death from the comic books. Because she's Hela, maybe she... You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm excited about everything, but okay, so going with villains on most of these, when the movies end, usually either the villain's captured or killed or something along those lines. That's kind of been the way it's happened in
my
the
mind,
MCU.
I can't stop thinking, how is this movie going to end? Because it's a setup movie.
It's a setup movie, and you have Hela, who's going to be a big part of Infinity Wars, as far as we know. How does he beat that? How do you beat somebody who's supposed to return for another movie?
I think this is going to give us a very Captain America feel, to be honest. That's the thing that I'm most worried about with Ragnarok. Like, as amped up and as feel-good movie vibe as you're getting from the trailer, because it's all like, you were talking about the bright colors, the campy comic feel to it.
Yeah.
As happy as so much of that is, and I love the Hulk like raging fire.
We're going to have to talk about the fact that Hulk fucking talks finally.
We are.
We're going to have to talk about that. But
we are totally going to have to. But as feel good as the trailer is, I'm still like, this is a setup movie, so I think it's going to end the same way that Captain America did. We're going to have closure on whatever the Ragnarok plot is.
Yeah. But we're going to have so many more questions leading into the next movie.
Our heroes are not going to probably end up in a good place. We're going to be like in a crap, now we have real work to do.
So, I want to touch on, for anybody who's seen the leaked trailer for Infinity Wars, when it opens up, Thor is floating in outer space and gets hit by a ship from the Guardians of the Galaxy. They bring him on the ship, they wake him up, and he's like, "Where am I? Who are you people?"
Did he have long or short hair?
No, he had short hair in that one.
Okay, so
his hair's
clearly
already
after
cut.
Ragnarok.
This is after Ragnarok. So that just
It's
leads
been a
you to
while
think
since I've
that
seen the
that
leaked
just leads you to
footage.
think that things really don't end well in Thor.
Yeah,
because
at what point
he's
is that? Is
floating
that
in
like
outer
in the middle of the
space.
movie? Is that going to be towards the beginning? Is that going to be our introduction to Thor in Infinity War? Now you're depressing me.
Yeah, no, because it doesn't. And so that's the thing is with leading out with these trailers. While it's exciting to see all these things, it leaves a lot more questions than answers. I know that obviously we have to wait for the movies to come out to get our answers, because as Captain America said in the end of the Spider-Man trailer, patience is what did he say? Like, patience, you got to wait.
I don't remember the exact verbiage
quote,
of it,
but it was basically him telling the fans, "Hey, cool your jets, shit's coming." But yeah, so I mean, it's a lot of questions that I have going into this movie where I'm not sure if we're gonna get those loose ends tied up. One question I don't have is something that was revealed in the trailer, and we did briefly mention on it earlier. Fucking Hulk talks.
Yes!
Finally.
That was really loud.
Finally, he talks. Like, I've been waiting 10 years, 16 movies, because Hulk was the second movie, for Hulk to say something besides Hulk smash.
Yes.
Like, so...
Puny God.
Puny God. Yeah. He's said very little so far, and I was wondering when they were finally gonna just take the reins off and do the thing that the cartoons and the comic books have done always, is he may not be super articulate, but he talks.
He is verbose. Yeah.
And so seeing him sitting next to Thor doing the,
raging fire, smoldering fire.
Like that I was so excited. So I'm hoping that he gets a lot more lines than just that, because I want to see him talk, not just Banner, because Banner's Banner, but
actually, I know that we were excited about the Hulk talking thing, but that kind of leads me into a question that I wanted to ask you.
Go ahead.
Again, not as informed in the comics as you are.
Yeah.
So there's a scene in the trailer where Bruce Banner is like, "Where are we?"
Uh-huh.
And in the trailer, we hear Thor saying, "You have no idea."
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, does Bruce Banner remember his time as the Hulk?
I don't always know.
Because the trailer kind of painted it as like, what have we been doing? Well, we got in a fight.
Uh-huh.
Who won? I did. That doesn't sound right.
Well,
totally did. Totally kicked your ass.
Totally kicked your ass. I know from my experience with the comic books that the Incredible Hulk was originally created to be Marvel's Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Yeah.
Marvel was doing the whole monsters thing, which, got them big sales, and, why DC was doing polished ass superheroes. But the Incredible Hulk was Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and they had two separate personalities.
Yeah.
Now, throughout the comics, depending on your writer, that's been pretty consistent. I know that when the Hulk takes over, and he calls him the other guy.
Yeah.
The other guy takes over. They've mentioned that in Age of Ultron. There are two different people. It is a split personality, 100%. Where when the Hulk takes over, Bruce Banner is locked in a room, and Bruce Banner's still conscious as Bruce Banner. He just has no idea what the Hulk is doing.
Okay. Well, I'm kind of curious how that's going to play into Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Because how much of it is going to be Hulk and Thor, and how much of it's going to be Banner and Thor.
Yeah.
Because the last time we saw Hulk, I mean, we've been focusing obviously a lot on Thor because it's a Thor movie. But the last time we saw Hulk was Age of Ultron.
Age of Ultron, when he jumped in.
We haven't had any post-credit scenes with him.
No, where he jumped in the ship and ripped Ultron out. Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah. But he flew away, and you were talking a little bit ago about how you were curious if they were going to bring in some of the threads with Hulk's wife, love interest there. I was really kind of growing attached to the Black Widow Hulk thing that they were building up in Age of Ultron, and the way that left on kind of a sad note.
Yeah.
Because he decides to take the Quinjet and just go.
Yeah.
Is that Bruce somehow coming out wanting to leave? Is that Hulk making that decision? Is Bruce going to be really upset when he realizes that Hulk took him away? Because I'm kind of curious to catch up with him, and if they really are two separate people that just inhabit a body-changing body, how's that going to play out?
Yeah. And again, that kind of right there goes on, it depends on your writer.
Yeah.
Because you look back at Edward Norton's Hulk, and he had his love interest there. Obviously, they've written Liv Tyler out of the movies.
Yeah.
But going into Age of Ultron, and the other Hulk movie, which was not the Incredible Hulk. I'm sorry, the Avengers, were the two movies we got him after that.
Yeah.
He seems aware quite a bit, because Hulk shares that whole thing in Age of Ultron of kind of not wanting to be in the fight.
Yeah, Bruce, he seems like a really reluctant hero. With the first Avengers, he wasn't supposed to Hulk out. No,
the whole thing was he wasn't supposed to.
That was Loki's plan, but that wasn't the Avengers' plans. They wanted Bruce Banner there for his scientist stuff. And, Bruce Banner's just sarcastically, you're fucking nuts.
Yeah.
The whole time. You want me to be up here on this thing that's contained. I could do a lot of damage if I turn into the other guy.
And it's crazy because, pointing out on that one, if you didn't know this from the comic books, the first ever issue of Avengers, when they first all joined together and became Avengers, their villain was the Hulk. He was a part of the team, but Loki
turned him.
Yeah, he got in his mind because the Hulk is vulnerable to mental attacks with the, and Bruce Banner is not going to do much as Banner, so he turns him into the Hulk, convinces him to fight the Avengers. And so they did touch on that with the original Avengers movie, which I loved. But yeah, as far as I know, he's two separate entities, but both of them really don't want to be bothered. I mean, even as a Hulk, he knows he can win any fight he gets into, and he just wants to be left alone. Yeah. And the Hulk is so scared, and Bruce Banner's so scared of hurting the people that they care about, now being the Avengers and, Black Widow.
You were going to say Scarlett Johansson.
I was going to say Scarlett Johansson, yeah. But that they would both run away. Yeah. To keep those people safe.
That, I guess, makes sense. But again, I'm kind of curious, like, how much aware is Bruce Banner going to be? Is he going to wake up and, like, literally not have any idea? Are we going to pick up with him not knowing what he's been doing all this time, maybe? Has Hulk been in charge that long? Are we going to maybe flesh out some more details on how the Hulk works? Yeah. We know that from the first Avengers, his secret is that he's always angry. But we saw in Age of Ultron that in order to come down from being the Hulk, they had this, thing established. Yeah. There's a part of me that wonders, has he been in Hulk mode all this time? Is Thor the reason he gets to be Bruce Banner? And Bruce is like, what the fuck has been going on? Like, how did I get here? We were just dealing with Ultron.
I wonder if they beat the crap out of each other.
And is he even going to remember the whole Ultron showdown? Is he going to know what's been going on?
Well, I mean, he does know the Ultron showdown because he didn't want to continue to fight. He didn't want to become the Hulk when he saved Black Widow.
But she pushed him. And see, that to me is why it left off in a sad place. And part of why I thought he left, because she's like, I want you and we're building up to something here, but I need the other guy. And I think that would have hurt him. And I'm kind of curious how we're going to pick that up. And is there going to be any forward momentum? I know I'm the girl, and maybe it's a little bit, stereotypical that I'm harping on the love interest stuff. Yeah. But the truth is, it's in the comic books, love interests. Yeah. Because love is so much a part of what it is it's part of the human condition. Yes. And no matter how many, cosmic entities and, Thanoses we're going to have, ultimately, every form of fiction is an expression of the human condition. Love is a very central part of that. Yeah. I'm feeling like we've got two characters who were missing from the last big thing with all the other Avenger characters. Ragnarok almost feels like it might be a catch-up movie because, we didn't see Hulk in Civil War, we didn't see Thor in Civil War, and this almost gives me the vibe like we're going to find out what they've been up to. At the same time, timeline stuff we already talked about. Yeah. Like, does it take place during Civil War? Does it take place after Civil War? But I'm still loose threads. I've got a lot of questions.
Yeah, and I could see with Hulk leaving, how long has he been on this battle planet that they're on?
Yeah. And how has that maybe changed him?
And so that brings up the question, like, when he's standing there with Bruce is standing there with Thor, and they're having the conversation, it seems like that's the first time he's been Banner. Because wouldn't he have the question of where are we before that, or at least know where he was if he had ever became Banner?
But furthermore, if Hulk is cognizant of what it is, you know what I mean? Like, we see a conversation between Thor and Hulk when he's Hulk. Yeah. We were talking about Hulk talking. Oh. That conversation implies that Hulk recognizes Thor and knows who he is, and they've got a good camaraderie going on. I don't know at what point in the movie that takes place, but clearly they're going to get to a point where Hulk and Thor recognize each other, know each other, they're on the same team. But in the Coliseum or, the battle royale between them, like, he's like, yes, when he sees Hulk come out, and he's like, I know him from work. And then Hulk just smashes him. So does Hulk not recognize him then? Has he been so hulked out and has he forgot about who Thor is? Because they've worked together at least twice that we know of. Yeah. Probably more, 3 times. Because at the beginning of Avengers Age of Ultron, we saw the awesome, comic book scene of them coming. Oh my God.
The splash page, man. And I love that they've been doing the splash pages lately.
Me too.
Oh, it's so good. Because, I mean, you get that feel of what you see in the comic books when you flip to that page and it's a double page panel and it's all this action going on.
You had that as the background of your phone.
That was the background of my phone. That was actually the background of my Facebook for a while. That
doesn't
scene.
Surprise me.
Yeah. Currently, I think it's Taskmaster because, again, I'm Taskmaster.
For sure. But, honestly, the more I think about it, the more I'm starting to wonder. We've been talking about all of our predictions and all of our theories, and we're getting hyped up about Thor.
Yeah.
By the time we actually post this podcast for people to listen to, the movie's going to come out.
Yeah, the movie's going to be out by the time we post this. This is probably going to be posted like a week before it actually comes out, but I'm really curious to see how much we got wrong and just how much we got right.
Well, you know me, I'm usually really good with the theories. So, all right, maybe we should wrap this up with our predictions.
Okay.
Just rapid fire. What do you think is going to happen in Ragnarok after everything we've talked about? Go.
So I think Ragnarok, after Hela destroys Asgard and Thor gets captured, has his fight with the Hulk, he's going to get together with Valkyrie, Loki, and they're going to assault on Asgard, which Hela at that point has released Fenrir, who we haven't talked about today, but is the son in the mythology of Loki. And Fenrir and Hulk are going to fight. I'm wondering where Surtur is going to fall in.
We haven't even talked about Surtur or Execute. Oh my gosh, we need a part 2.
I think we do.
We've been going for over an hour talking about all this other stuff, and there's still so much to talk about.
But so many people are coming into this, and so I think they're going to have a big old battle with those guys. I think Hela's trying to release Surtur and Fenrir to bring upon the end of times.
Yeah.
And while I think they're going to stop her and Surtur, I think at the end of it, Hela's going to overpower them. They're going to be separated, and that's where we lead into Infinity War with Thor floating in space.
I'm going to go with, I gave my theory tangent earlier about how I think the film might open.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with still that. I think Thor's going to use Strange to get to Asgard or to get, off Earth.
Yep.
And then on Asgard, Hela's going to show up, smash the hammer. Thor is going to be kind of cast to the wind at that point. Hair is going to get chopped off because he's pulled in by Valkyrie.
Yep.
Valkyrie's going to grab him at that low point, bring him in. We're going to do the whole contest of champions. And then they're going to somehow kick some ass at the contest of champions and overpower Grandmaster, whoever the mastermind is there. They're going to deal with Loki. They're going to put together a team.
Yep.
We're probably at that point going to have their asses kicked. Just as they seem they're on a high note, we're going to see them kind of kicking some awesome ass. But then we're going to have the kick them back a minute. They're going to have to rally. And then we're going to have the big stuff. I think there's going to be at least one villain who dies or otherwise is very, very defeated. Mm-hmm. But Hela's obviously going to get away. I don't know if I think he's going to be left floating in space by the end of it.
Bringing up your point of Hela, he gets to Asgard and Hela then destroys his hammer.
Are we going to see Thanos?
I'm hoping we're going to see Thanos.
I'm thinking maybe the whole him floating in space then, because if we're going on theories.
Maybe Thanos kicked his ass?
Maybe he's like drifting out or whatever, and he's trying to get back to Earth.
Ooh, wouldn't it make sense if Thanos came for an Infinity Stone at the end of the movie?
Ooh, we kind of need another Infinity Stone, unless Black Panther's going to do an Infinity Stone.
Well, true.
Because we got Black Panther coming up in February.
But they do have the ether there, which is the red Infinity Stone that was from Dark World.
Did they keep the ether on Asgard?
No, my bad. The Collector has the ether.
The Collector has the ether.
That is true. Because they did take it to the Collector, and he said 1 down, 6 to 5 to go.
Yeah.
But to bring up your point that you made on him going to fight Hela and then her destroying his hammer on Asgard, I'm wondering if the vision that he saw in Age of Ultron, where he told him, you brought hell, Heimdall brings up the fact that hell, he's killed them all, this and that. What if during the events that were going on, Age of Ultron and all that, Hela has already attacked Asgard and taken over? So by the time he gets there, she's already Queen of Asgard. which is the reason he can't get through the Bifrost.
That would also explain why Loki is,
with the
Grandmaster. We saw him at one point in the trailer sitting on the opposite end of the sofa. We're not really doing a very good job of wrapping up, but come on, guys. You know you love listening to us talk. We saw at one point in the trailer Loki on one end of the sofa, free as a bird from what I could tell, unless he was being, coerced under some other influence. But then later we see him tied up in a room that looks like it should be in the same facility or complex.
I will give Marvel this. They've done a good job of doing multiple shoots.
Yeah.
Civil War being a perfect example. On the trailers, you saw everybody running at each other. And when you go back and you watch the movie, Spider-Man is now in the movie, but they edited him out of the trailers. He wasn't in the trailers until they did the flip backwards steel cap shield. They didn't show him in the run-up at any point in any of the trailers.
That's true.
So there's also the scene where Tony Stark is talking about him being for the initiative, and his tone is completely different from the trailer than it is in the actual movie. So it's very possible that Loki is sitting there in shackles in the actual movie, but not in the trailer.
That is, I guess, technically possible. Keeping in mind that trailers are usually cut together from footage before the final edit of the film has been made. So there's a lot of stuff that we see in the trailer that might not even happen in the film.
Or might happen slightly different from a different camera angle.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's always something to be considered.
Yeah.
I'm still hyped up on Thor. I really don't want to stop talking, especially now that I realize we did not touch on these things that I wanted to ask you about. Can we do rapid fire maybe?
Let's do some rapid fire.
I don't know anything about Surtur. Go.
So Surtur is the god that brings upon the Ragnarok, which in Norse mythology is the end of all things. I mean, everybody dies, everything dies. There's nothing after that. And then it's reborn again, and it goes through a cycle again.
Yeah.
So Surtur is a fire. I mean, he's just pure fire and rage.
I am so going to screw this up, but I'm going to interject really quick. I love all things mythology. My area of speciality would probably be more Greek mythology. That's what I'm more familiar with. But in Norse mythology, the tree of life is totally a thing. Like the way that they've put that into the comic universe and obviously in the MCU. But there's actually like a dragon type demon that lives under the tree of life.
The serpent.
Who eats at the roots. Is Surtur in any way, shape, or form like related to that? Because in Norse mythology, Ragnarok is triggered when that serpent basically breaks the root system of the tree.
Yeah. So, I believe he's part of bringing upon destroying Asgard. So then there's nobody to protect the world from the serpent.
Gotcha. Well, those of you who are listening, if you know more about Surtur than we do, or its connection to Norse mythology, leave it in the comments for us.
Yeah. And I know that Fenrir also is usually shackled and kept, the same way Surtur is, where they're locked into other worlds.
So these are kind of like monsters that are locked away that Hela's going to release?
Yeah. Fenrir, okay, so in the Norse mythology, Hela, or Hel, is Loki's daughter, and Fenrir is also Loki's son, so they're brother and sister. They basically help bring upon Ragnarok in the Norse mythology, usually by her unshackling Fenrir and him helping, open up the portals to bring, more destruction and death.
Are they related
Asgard.
like that in the comics?
In the comic books, not necessarily. They don't really treat them the same way in the comic books than they do in the Norse mythology. Yeah,
because the Norse mythology and the books have their own mythos to them. What about the Executioner? I don't know anything about him, but he's being played by Karl Urban.
Yeah, so the Executioner is, in the comics, is the right hand of the Enchantress. She's not in this movie. I'm a bit disappointed they're not bringing the Enchantress in, but it seems like Hela's filling in a lot of roles here. Not only is she taken over as a mistress of death,
I don't know anything about Enchantress, so you're going to have to clue me in on that.
So she's also taken over the Enchantress. The Enchantress is obsessed with Thor. She wants to be the queen of Asgard. So she's obsessed with Thor. She kind of jumps back and forth between, because she's an Asgardian, she kind of jumps back and forth between being in the favor of the Asgardians and trying to destroy Asgard.
So we're not even sure if Hela is going to be Hela. Like, Hela is
it seems like
possibly going to be taking on the role of Enchantress.
Possibly.
She's definitely going to be taking on the role of Hela, but she's also going to be taking on the moniker of Lady Death.
Yes.
That's crazy. That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it is a lot of stuff. And I mean, that's one of the things, like, okay, so as an outside viewer, you not being a comic book reader from, you don't have to be involved so much with the epic space opera that is Asgard, the same way that a lot of people who watch the X-Men movies don't have to, have continuity with who's related to who.
Yeah.
When you watch the movies, I'm pretty sure they're going to tie up with just making this character what they are, and us as the comic book fans will see these little nuances, these little things. Those will be hopefully a lot of Easter eggs for us to be like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that.
Yeah, well, after all this, I think we're definitely going to have to do a postmortem once the movie comes out and we see it. Mm-hmm. I think you having the knowledge and experience from the comic book point of view and my just being MCU, we're probably gonna have very different opinions about this movie.
I mean, when it comes to Thor, again, my comic knowledge is limited when it comes to Thor. If this was a Spider-Man movie, Iron Man movie, an X-Men movie, I would have I'd have 30 plus years of just geeking out every day to these things. But when it comes to Thor, usually my experience with Thor has been from Avengers, the comic books. Yeah. I don't really read a lot of his solo things, with the exception of a bunch of big story arcs, which has been
solo things now.
Her solo things, which I mean, I've read a few of the big story arcs, where Fear itself and things along those lines, but this isn't taking from any of those. So I'm going in just with the same bright-eyed, optimism that you are, and hoping that, this is going to live up to the things that I do know of the comic book characters.
Yeah. So as much as I'm sure everybody loves the sound of our voices, we were trying to wrap up a little while ago. I think we should probably get back to that now.
Yeah, so we are going to be doing another episode on Thor Ragnarok once we finally get to see the movie.
Of course we are, because I'm going to have to obsess over Jane Foster again, or the lack thereof.
But next time...
Never letting go, Natalie. I'm never letting go.
But next time we'll be talking about DC and Justice League.
Justice League!
And what a hot piece of shit I think that's going to be.
Or... what an amazing piece of cinematic history I think it's going to be. I love me some Justice League.
I absolutely don't.
Until then, if you want more of us, check out the links in the description below. Thanks for listening to The Imaginary Box.
Deuces!
I would love that if that was your actual outro.